Good morning, everyone. Let's talk about finding credible sources. To do this assignment, you have, of course, your notes here inside of Kami, and you have the slides that I'm about to show you. So before we go through the PowerPoint, take a look at our notes. I want you to, of course, pause this video whenever you need to write something down, and then unpause it once you're ready to continue. First, start by answering the questions here on the top of this page. Rate yourself. How good do you think you are at researching, finding new information, or checking to see if you're right in an argument? Rate yourself from 1 to 6. Do you seek out new information often? And when you find new information, do you look to see if this is from people you trust? Okay, so you should have taken a second to write that down. Let's talk about this real quick. So we're about to do a research project. I'll give you more information about that tomorrow. And in order to do research, you have to think about whether or not the information you're looking for is trustworthy, if it's something that you should believe. We live in a world now, unfortunately, where a lot of things just aren't trustworthy. We have a pandemic of fake news, so they say. Things that you see online are usually thought to be not true or false, outright lying to you. But there's a spectrum between outright lying to you and just a small mistake or misunderstanding. So when you're doing research, you have to be aware of that, of where your sources fall on that spectrum. Go ahead and scroll down, and we're going to take notes as we go through this presentation here. First of all, what is a source? A source simply is where something comes from. Rivers have a source, oceans have a source, language has a source, your family has a source from where your ancestors came from. Information that you get in schools comes from your teachers. Your teachers got it from textbooks. Those textbooks got it from other books written by really smart people. Those really smart people get their information by studying and doing different experiments. And the chain goes on and on and on. So please write this down under sources, that a source is simply where something comes from. What does it mean for something to be credible? I want you to think of credible in two different ways. Street cred is your reputation, okay? And credits in a movie tell you everyone that helped make that film. So think of credible like able to have street cred, able to have a great reputation. And creditable. Now, creditable is going to be, is your spell check is going to get that immediately. Creditable is a different word than credible. Creditable, able to be in the credits of something because they did something to help. Okay, think of credible being these two different things. Able to have a reputation and something that helps. So if something is credible, that also means that means that it has a good reputation, and that means that it's helpful. That's what credible means. It's used interchangeably to mean reliable or trustworthy as well. So copy that down here on credible, and then I'm going to give you a definition to put on these lines on this next slide. A credible source. Credibility is defined as the power to inspire belief. So, credible sources must provide information that you can believe to be true. Copy this goes on these lines right here. There are 5 different qualities that make a source right? Where information comes from, credible, believable, good reputation, able to be used. Here are those 5 qualities. Pause to write them down on your paper there. Authority, accuracy, objectivity, currentness, and coverage. Authority has to do with the author. Accuracy, I hope we all know what that means. Something is accurate, it's correct. Objectivity means that you don't have any any personal stake in the information. Currentness will also be called currency in this presentation. When I say currency, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about currentness, how current it is, how recent it is, and coverage. Of course, we should all know what coverage means. So make sure that you've written those down on that, and let's talk about authority. Authority has to do with what an author's rank and qualifications. Who are they? Why should you believe them? For web sources, an author can be a person, a group, a company, or an institution. So when you find information on the internet, you're going to find a lot of things where it doesn't tell you who wrote the article. You might have to attribute it to being the entire website. And put this down under authority. Authority has to do with the author's rank and qualifications. Who are they? Blah, blah, blah. If a source does not tell you the name of an author, it is not a credible source. Authority is important because it tells you who is in charge of the website. It's important to know who the author is so that you know if they're lying to you. We should all be, I hope, familiar with Reddit and other sites on the internet that are similar to it. On sites like Reddit, you are anonymous, meaning that people don't get to see your real name. You might have this on TikTok as well these days. I don't know. If you use your real name, you're going to do things that you want people to think of as cool, or you have a reputation to uphold. It's the same thing with any source of information you find on the internet. If their name's not on it, then they're probably up to no good. Okay? And if you can't find any sort of reputation for the website or the institution, then it's probably not something to trust. Okay, so make sure you put this down. I'm going to move this over here on why authority is important. Sources that do not tell you the author are not credible. Okay, it's important because you need to know they're not lying to you. Accuracy has to do with how correct something is. Does your source use proper grammar? Do they tell you how they know what they tell you is true? Sources that misspell words are not credible as a source. So we're going to copy that down again onto our notes here. Accuracy is how correct something is. Basically, if there's a bunch of spelling errors, if there's typos, grammar, this also includes inappropriate language. If you find a source that's using swear words, this also negates it as a credible source. Accuracy is how correct something is, also how formal something is. Next is objectivity, and on objectivity we have I'm going to the wrong spot. We have 2 different words to define. The first word we're going to define is objective, and looks like I might have gotten these out of order. Okay, if something that does not show favoritism is called objectivity. So, oh my gosh, now I'm going to the wrong spot constantly. Objectivity is not showing favoritism. And a bias is what we call favoritism towards a personal belief or goal. So bias is just another word for favoritism. Everyone has their own biases. Your religion, your social class, your politics are all your biases. That's not a problem. Everyone shows favoritism. But biases are a problem if you're looking for credible sources. If a source favors one group or belief over another, it is not credible. It does not have a good reputation, and it is not helpful. Okay, so let's make sure we've got everything for that. A bias is a favoritism towards something. Objectivity is showing no favoritism. Next is currency or currentness. Currency and currentness are how recently recently a source of information was created. Is it from this year, this week, this month? The older a source is, the less credible it becomes because the information and opinions may have changed since it was created. Later on, we're going to see an article from 2011. Now, you kids are at about the age where, how old would you have been? Like 5 years old when that was created? So, is something from that long ago even worth talking about? Things change. Next is coverage. Coverage is how well a source covers the information. Did they leave out key parts that you know should be there? Did they bring up a topic that is not explained thoroughly? A source may not cover as much as a short source may not cover as much as a long source. Listen to this. Choose the length of your sources carefully so that you have time to read them, but that they are not so short that they leave out information. I know the game. I've been a middle schooler getting research projects. I know that you're going to go and you're going to search for the shortest possible source. You're going to look for things that require the least amount of work. I get it. I understand. But make sure that what you read is long enough that it's actually useful. Okay? If it's only 4 paragraphs, it's probably not long enough to be useful. We're going to talk later about sections. If your source is so small that it doesn't break its information up into different sections, then it does not cover enough. Let's make sure that we wrote down those last 2 parts. Currency is how recent something is. Coverage is how well it covers the source. Okay, is it long enough? Pause to make sure you have those, and then you're also going to pause and answer questions 1 and 2 under 3. In your own words, what is a credible source? What makes it credible? Make sure you answer this in a complete sentence. We can get it started together if you're having trouble. A credible source is a source that can be believed, has a reputation, is helpful. What makes it credible? A source is credible when it blank. There's 5 things. Number 2, why is it important to find sources that are credible when you search for information online? Okay, this is an opinion piece. Why do you think it's important? You can start with, I think it is important because. Okay, pause to answer those before you continue. Make sure you finish the sentence too. I know you guys, you're going to try and stop there and tell me, oh, that's all you did, I just copied it. No. Finish the sentence. I think it's important because why? What do you think it's important for? All right. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit here and start looking through an actual source and see if we can find its 5 qualities. There's a link here. I'm going to show it to you. We've got this article. Now, you might be panicking as I scroll through this. Look how long it is, Mr. Sullivan. We're not going to read it. I don't have time to read this. You don't have time to read this. And it's about World War I. Who cares? So we're just not going to read it. But we are going to look through the page to see if we can find where certain information is at. Okay. So here's a picture of that. That's for when we're in class. Don't worry about it. First, finding authority. Okay, to find authority, we need to look for certain things. Is the author's name there? Okay, if the author's name's not there, that means they're trying to stay anonymous. If they're trying to hide their identity, then they're probably up to no good. What is the author's qualifications? Qualifications means why should we trust them? Things like being a doctor, being a professor, being a scholar, being a teacher. Why should you trust them? How do we know that do we know how they're related to the website? Basically, is the author the owner of the website, and is there more information about the author that we can find? So on your notes, here's what you're going to do. As you watch this video and you see me go through this, you're going to circle yes or no for all of these questions. Is the author's name listed? Is the author qualified? Is the author the owner of the website? And can we find information about the author in a bio or their sections?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I should be able to get something out of these. If not, whatever you can. I mean, just pitch what you can. And I found these, and they're just.
Okay, so apologies for the interruption. I do not have time to edit this video and take that out. But as we scroll through here, we can answer the first question. Is the author's name listed at the top or the bottom? The answer is yes. The author's name is right here, underneath of the title. The title of this article is The Western Front and the Birth of Total War. Underneath is the name of the author, Dr. Stephen Badsey. So you can check that off as a yes. What's our second question? Let's talk about this, actually. The author's name is usually at the top. If it's not at the top, it'll be at the bottom. The author is a doctor. Let's talk about his qualifications. Qualifications are what make a person an expert. Stephen Badsey is credited as a doctor, meaning that he's gone through a lot of training. He had to go through at least 12 years of schooling to be able to be called a doctor. If someone's gone through 12 years of school, do you think that they're qualified to tell you something? I think so. So, is the author's name listed? Yes. Is the author qualified? Yes. Is the author the owner of the website? Let's look through it here. This website is bbc.co.uk. The BBC is the largest broadcasting company in all of England, and Dr. Stephen Badsey is not, as a matter of fact, the owner of the BBC. He is just a writer for it. Now we can find that information by coming down here at the bottom. Oh, look at this. There's stuff at the end of articles. Yes, there is. Down here we have something called the About the Author section that tells us exactly that. Dr. Stephen Badsey is a senior lecturer in the Department of War Studies in the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst and a specialist in theories in warfare. In other words, he does not own the BBC. He has made numerous television appearances, including on the BBC's TV show Time Watch. Okay, so how are they related? It's important to know that the author is not the owner of the website. In this case, the website is one of the largest public news outlets in the United Kingdom. The author has been on their shows. So the question is, since this man has been on their shows, has been on TV with them, can you still trust him? I'd say yes. Yes, absolutely. So, is the author the owner of the website? No, he is not. And finally, are we able to find more information about him? I already showed you down here, we have an About the Author section. Just the fact that this is here makes this more credible. We talked about the authors hiding their name. If the author puts their name on and tells you more about themselves, then that's even better than just putting their name on. Okay, and then also, if we didn't find this, About the Author sections are actually pretty rare. So if we did not find this, we would be able to do a very quick Google search of Stephen Badsey. And you see here on this on this slide, I did just that and took a screenshot of his website. It has "Who am I?" and here, real small text, it says he spent 25 years as a military historian. It tells you all the schools he went to and blah blah blah. Okay. It also claims that he wrote 25 different books about military history. This guy sounds pretty reliable. It sounds like he knows what he's talking about. But if we didn't believe him about the fact that he wrote 25 books, it's simple enough to go to Amazon and check to see. Yes, he did write several books. He sells them for an outrageous amount, even. So this guy seems to know what he's talking about. Authority, check. He is someone to be trusted. Now let's talk about accuracy. Accuracy is something that we can't really talk too much about because it requires us to read it, and we're being lazy, so we're not going to read it. But take my word for it, there are no grammar errors in this passage. I checked. There are not any. You would be able to tell immediately. If you go to a website like BuzzFeed, or if you're a video gamer, you might read a review on IGN, you can tell within the first few sentences whether or not this author is worth anything as a writer. If they use an informal tone, if they start saying things, start saying curse words, if they start using slang of any kind, if it starts off by saying World War I was trippin', yo, you're done. So take it from me, there are no errors in this. There are no errors in this article, so we can say accuracy is free of grammar errors. Yes. Does the article list other sources for you to check? Let's see here. Other source, finding accuracy. Yes, it does, as a matter of fact. At the end of most articles, you'll find something called a bibliography, sometimes also called a works cited. In this case, it's called a find out more, and it's right down here. I'll show you on this website. If we scroll down all the way, come on. There it is. Find out more. Books. Right here is our works cited. This is all the information that Stephen Badsey used to prove that his article is correct. If we were to read through this, we would pick up on all sorts of different information about the war, and then we come to here, and he's telling you, look, you don't believe me? This is exactly where I found this information. It's called Command and Control on the Western Front. It's a book about how militaries operate. Here's another book that I got information from if you don't want to read that one. And here's another one. Let me just check something real quick. Nope, never mind. Okay, I thought one of these might have been his own book. Oh, actually, yes. He actually helped write this book. So the fact that he helped write this book with another man, that tells you that, hey, I got this information from here. We did a lot of research together. Gary will vouch for me. He knows that this is true. So on our thing here, does this list other sources for you to check? Yes. And then third question, does it say anything that you already know is not true? This is another thing that we would have to pick up by reading it, which we're not doing, so this is a little awkward. But if you were reading this and the first sentence said World War I took place on Mars, you would immediately know that that's not true, and you can check that off your list. No, take my word for it. No, this article does not say anything that's not true. All right. I've been talking for quite a while now, so pause the video. Make sure that you have all of these answered. It should be yes, 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 or sorry, no up here. Yes, yes, no. And then I want you to take a 5-minute break and come back. All right, let's talk about coverage. When we're trying to find the coverage, we ask ourselves these questions. How long is the source? How does the source have different sections for us? And when you read the source, does it leave you with more questions than when you started? Let's talk first about how long something is. I already briefly mentioned this. If it's too short, it's not worth it. I've been there. I've done research papers with sources that are only 4 paragraphs because I was too lazy to read anything else. And those sources are never very good. They never give you enough information. They never tell you what you need to know. So look for something a little longer. 6, 7 paragraphs, probably at the minimum. Does this source have sections for you to identify key concepts? Sections, yes, it does. Right here on the side of the page, it says on this page we have New Kind of War, Age of Iron. If we click on any of them, it'll take us to that different section. This is helpful for a source that is longer, like this one. Now, I don't expect you guys to find sources that are this long. This is probably the upper end of how long something would be before you just look at it and say, no, I'll find something else. But since this has different sections, maybe all we were looking for on this was something about Christmas in World War I. Well, look, right here, over Christmas is one of the sections, and it'll tell you what happened in these 3 paragraphs, and Christmas during World War I. If you're looking for something super specific, then having sections is very useful. So does this have sections? Is this long enough? Yes. Is this does this have sections? Yes. And then finally, do you understand what the source is saying? Especially if you come across if you were researching World War I and you were actually reading this article, you might come across a lot of terms that you just don't understand. Let's see if I can find Austria-Hungary. Do you guys know where that's at? Interlocking. Do you know what that means? Alliances. Do you know what those are? Okay. Let's see here. There's Austria-Hungary again. Okay. So if you don't know what Austria-Hungary is, or any of those other terms, then this isn't really useful to you. Now, is it? So if that's happening, then this isn't really a source that you want to use. Now, for our purposes of demonstration, we're going to say yes. We're going to pretend we understood this source since we're not reading it. All right. Next, objectivity. What is the author's nationality, and could that affect the article? What is the author's profession, and could that affect the article? What is the author's religion and political point of view, and could that affect the article? You need to ask yourself all 3 of these questions. Let's flip back over here and let's think about who Stephen Badsey is. Okay, it doesn't tell us this in his About the Author section, but he's British. How do we know that he's British? Because this is a British news source. The BBC, B in BBC stands for British Broadcasting something or another. Okay, so he's not an American. Now, if we were writing this article, or if we were writing a research report about the United States involvement in World War I, his article is going to be about the United Kingdom, England, Britain. It's not going to be about America. And I'm telling you right here in this first paragraph, it already gives you something that's not true for the United States. It says that this war started in 1914. You can ask Mr. Trimner if you don't believe me. World War I started in 1917 for the United States, not 1914. So does the author's nationality affect the information in this source? Yes. Yes, it does. Absolutely. Could the author's profession affect the source? Now, what's his profession again? He's a war researcher. He works full-time, a senior lecturer, meaning he's a professor in the Department of War Studies. That's his profession. This is about war. Can that affect it in any way? In a negative way? No, I don't think so. So, no, the author's profession is not an issue. And what about the author's religious and political affiliations? Now, we don't know what Stephen Badsy's politics are like. We don't know his religion, but we do know that this article is about war. And we know that war is a political thing. It's something that's debated on the floors of politics. So the fact that this is a topic about politics tells me, yes, this is going to be an issue. I'm going to have to look as I read this to make sure that there's not a political bias, a political favoritism. If Stephen Badsy is a Republican, then anything he writes about war might have a Republican leaning. If he's a Democrat, anything he writes about war might have a Democratic leaning or bias. Okay, so I'm not going to use these here. Let's skip back here. Currentness. When we're doing currentness, we ask ourselves the following questions. Is the date on here? If it doesn't tell you the date, you should already be skeptical. We know that it has the date. It's right here. Last updated 11/3/8. Now, this is impossible to decipher because England uses a different system here. They use, I think they use day and then month most of the time, whereas we use month and then day. But this is either March 8th or August 3rd, one of the two. We can't really tell. Either way, the thing that's important here is that this is from 2011. In 2011, this is currently 2021. 2011 was 10 years ago. Could information have changed since then? Absolutely. So let's look at our questions here. Is the date there? Yes, it's there. Is the date recent? No. 10 years ago? I'm sorry, but that is not recent. Is the copyright at the bottom of the page? Now, this is something you may already have known, but at the bottom of every website is something called the copyright number. It's right down here for us, BBC Copyright 2014. Now, that tells us, what that does is that tells us when was the last time that the website cared about this article. If any time that a website is updated, they'll change this number. If they were to change it this year, they would change that to 2021. So this website, the BBC, has not touched this article since the year 2014. So is the copyright there? Yes. Is it recent? No. Does the website update their page regularly? No. And the reason that I'm using this as an example is actually because up at the top, you may have noticed, it says this page has been archived and is no longer updated. And on the date, it says last updated. So this has changed. At some point, somebody came in here and said, let's fix something. But since then, they've given up. So that should raise a red flag to you and say, okay, this fails our currentness test. So, conclusion. I've been talking to you for 35 minutes, and you've been pausing to update your notes. So, 45 minutes ago, let's say, we started looking at what it means to have a reliable, credible source. It means that it is something to be believed, something with a good reputation, something that is helpful. It's something that has authority, that has currentness, that has accuracy, that has objectivity, and that completely covers the topic. We talked about, we looked through our article here, and we determined, I've just now determined that I should have been highlighting these as we go. We have a yes, yes, no, yes. We should have a yes, yes, no, yes, yes, yes. Okay, most of our things are going to be in here, except for objectivity. We have yes, no, yes. Until we get to objectivity and currentness, everything is in this first column, almost. Now, when we draw our conclusion, if you can answer all of these questions in this first column, then it's a perfect source. But if there's one or two missing, that doesn't mean that it's not credible. It just means that it's not perfect. So ask yourself, is this source still credible? Would I still trust it? It has a very strong authority. This man is incredibly qualified to tell you about World War I. It's incredibly accurate. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no grammar errors. It covers everything you would want to know. The only problems are these two. So is this still credible? Yes. Yes, it is. Okay, make sure you circle yes. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me, and I will see you next time.